Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza here at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. My guest today is Dr. Chris Molda. He is a wellness practitioner. He's also a chiropractor, and I'm very excited to bring his story to you today because it has one of those elements that I completely love, which is how we usually do go through the path of finding rock bottom somehow and then finding our way out. So seeing and finding the light through the darkness, which is just so powerful. So welcome, Dr. Chris. How are you today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good today.
Awesome. Why don't you start by just letting the audience know a little bit about yourself, like what you started?
Okay, yeah. So I'm in the Northeast. I've been in practice for over 20 years, and my practice started out as a chiropractic practice, and it was going pretty well. But I got into the functional space just because I had a lot of sick patients early on that I just couldn't get well. And chiropractic is great. It's a great tool. I helped a lot of people, but there was just more that I wanted to do. And eventually, I found out that I had a family member who had undiagnosed Lyme for 15 years and a lot of health issues. And that's really what started my journey into the, we'll say, the functional space and trying to understand more complex conditions as opposed to just being able to help people with, we'll say, structural issues and adjusting them and helping them feel better through the adjustment. I started to add these other tools in terms of diet and supplementation and other therapies like red light therapy into my practice to start to help more complex people and get better results at the time.
Amazing. I am a big advocate of chiropractic. I used to work for a chiropractor when I was going to college, so I learned a lot about it, and it's just fascinating because back then, and this is many years ago, time dating myself here, I didn't know anything about chiropractic before I started working for a chiropractor. And it was all about the alignment and how by having the alignment of the bones and the nerves going in the right place that you have the well-being. However, just like you, I found out that, oh, okay, that's kind of like one thing, but now there's this other big thing. And it just feels like we don't really find out about the other thing until something happens. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, so I'm just going to piggyback off that first in terms of the nice thing with being a trained chiropractor is what chiropractic philosophy teaches you. And it's a really simple philosophy, which I'm sure most people intuitively agree with, and that is that your body wants to heal itself,
Yeah.
right? But there's something stopping it from healing. And a lot of times when you're sick, you can feel that. Like, I want to heal, but I can't, so I'm stopping it. And in chiropractic, the way we try to simplify that is by saying there's three things that cause disease or disease. And those three things are either a physical trauma, an emotional trauma, or a toxic trauma. And we just call them the three T's: trauma, thought, toxin. And so in chiropractic, we predominantly deal with the physical traumas, right?
Hmm.
Concussion, whiplash, that kind of thing, those physical traumas. And if you have a physical injury that causes your sickness or disease, getting adjusted, getting massage, those things help really well. And you see those kind of crazy healing moments happen in chiropractic offices all the time because people have had these physical traumas. But you can't use a chiropractic adjustment for an emotional problem, and you can't use a chiropractic adjustment to fix a toxin. And so that's why I wanted to start to move into those other fields. I got into neurofeedback and biofeedback. I had a huge concussion practice, and that's when I started to get into the nutritional aspect and the functional aspect. And at this time, me and my wife had had a couple of miscarriages, and all of these things that I was doing that were associated with the physical trauma and the emotional part just weren't working. And so to help my family, I had to do a deeper dive into that nutritional stuff and what were toxins and learned a lot about detox and how to detox people and learn about nutrition and fasting and how to support the body's natural detox to push these toxins out of you more efficiently that might be stuck and causing a lot of the disease or the symptoms that you're feeling. And so my practice naturally went in that way. And that was about 10 years ago. And the good news is that I mean that kind of protocol helped my wife, and that's kind of what hooked me is that we did this protocol and we were able to get pregnant. Once we figured it took like 5 years, it was a windy road. Like you said,
Hmm.
it's not a straight road, it's a windy road. But eventually, once we got to this point where we learned how to detox the body more efficiently, my wife's health changed drastically. We were able to get pregnant again. And so it seemed like her hormones had balanced out pretty well. And so I was in that practice for about 5 years, 6 years, doing what I would say now is the standard protocols for chronic conditions, whether it's Lyme or autoimmune or digestive issues, where we're supporting detox pathways, we're working on cellular health, reducing inflammation, helping the microbiome, incorporating fasting into your diet, and helping a good amount of people, but still not being able to help some people. And for me, that was always frustrating because I'm just always curious. And one of those people was my mother-in-law, who just wasn't getting better with all the stuff I was doing. And so she kind of forced me to keep looking for something new and something new and something new. Because she was always my litmus test for did I find the thing that's going to help somebody with chronic Lyme? And so that was going pretty well. And I was helping people with chronic Lyme. But for me personally, it wasn't a solution because ultimately I could work with somebody for 3 months and they could get their life back. People who had given up, you know, surfing or painting or gardening, people who slept, for 14 hours a day and were in pain. And I could take those people and help them relieve their symptoms, but they were still on all these complex supplement protocols where they were cycling on and off of supplements. They had to eat a very strict diet. They were taking, multiple supplements at a time. And while they were getting their life back, they couldn't let go of those protocols without paying for it. And so I never considered that actual healing
Hmm.
because their body never took over. It was always, hey, we're just going to have to tightly manage the situation. And that was really good for a lot of people in a lot of years because I didn't have anything else. And it wasn't until 2021 when I got sick. And the reason I got sick was because I got bit by a tick. My office had black mold, and my landlord wasn't doing anything about it. So I was working in black mold for 6 months. I was diagnosed with parasites at that time. And then I got sick with COVID and was in bed for 2 weeks, not able to even get out of bed. And so I had this perfect storm of conditions happen to me. And none of the protocols were helping me.
Mm.
And what I realized is that these protocols were good for people who were kind of sick, but not really sick with these really complicated things that I was dealing with. And so um, I had to keep looking, keep searching, and it took probably about 3 or 4 years for me to finally get the results I was looking for. And during that 3 to 4 time frame, I mean, I would get like little incremental things like I ended up being deficient in iodine, and so I just started to take iodine, and some of my energy came back, but it didn't explain why my iodine was so low,
Mm.
right? And so it still was boomeranging back and forth where I'd have energy and then not, and have energy and then not. And it wasn't until very recently that I was able to find a couple of protocols, a couple of treatments that actually moved me from here feeling bad to my bottom now being here. And then once my bottom got a little bit more stable, meaning the floor, meaning like I wasn't crashing every day, my body started to heal again. And I was able to actually raise my good days from here to all the way up here again and start to feel normal and have a normal life again. Um, And it was at that point that I honestly found one last treatment. And once I found that last treatment, that was the thing that just brought it all together. And we can talk about that. But it wasn't
Yeah.
until I found this one last piece of the puzzle that really helped my body heal and take a break from all the stress and all of the cortisol and all of the just being on edge all the time. And so I finally was able to eliminate all of those stressors in my body and just start to function like a normal human being again.
Amazing. How did you find what like how did you find the missing piece?
The missing piece.
Yes.
So the first missing piece was I work with a bunch of other doctors and colleagues. And one of my colleagues, she's a really good friend of mine. I've known her for 6 years now. And so we meet actually every week and just talk and stuff. And she had found a different way to detox. And I'll touch on this a little bit, but
Hmm.
at the time, we were all taught to detox using all these different supplements, from glutathione to methylation to liver support to kidney support, microbiome support, and you use some binders, all these different kinds of binders, like activated charcoal and some zeolite, a little bit of zeolite. I'm trying to think of the other ones, but like 8 different binders, and it was really making me feel really sick when I did it. And so when I was talking to her, she's like, "Hey, I just found this new way to detox. It's one supplement. It's just this binder, but you do a really high dose of it, and you should try it." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't do it. I didn't do it for a while. I was like, "Okay, but no." And eventually we just kept talking about it. I talked to the owner of the company. Philosophically, we talked a lot about the philosophy of it, and it made a lot of sense. And so that was the first step. I changed the way I detoxed me. I went with a really high dose binder, and I instantly felt better. Like that was the first thing that was just like, whoa, my I feel a lot better and I'm not crashing. Like my floor has come up. And so that was the first thing. And for patients out there, or for people listening and just, who don't understand why, this is what I would say about detox. When you use a binder is essentially a cage and it grabs a toxin. It just sits there. So the first thing you have to understand about a binder is it just sits there. You don't metabolize it. So you don't react to it. So if you are like super sensitive and you're like, oh, I can only take a quarter of something. When you take something like zeolite, you can't metabolize it. So you can't react to it. There's no reaction to it whatsoever. And what it does is it grabs the toxin, it doesn't let it go. So now you can't react to that toxin and it pulls it out of you safely and it lowers your toxic load or your inflammatory load. So you start to feel better. The problem is that once you start to feel better, your body goes, whoo, I've been holding on to these other toxins for so long. I'm just going to dump those too. And so, what people typically experience as a negative reaction or a detox reaction is your body feeling better and dumping another wave of toxins into your intestines, and you not having enough binder to grab it. And so, you reabsorb it. And toxins love fat. So, when you reabsorb it, they tend to go to your brain, they tend to go to the fatty parts of your body, and you just don't feel good when you detox. And the solution is actually to use more binder so that you have enough for the first wave and the second wave. And when you get to that high enough threshold, you actually just start to feel better when you take it because you're finally eliminating the logjam of toxins that are there. And so that's, for me, the quickest way to get people to feel better. It's just by removing those splinters,
Hmm.
removing those irritants, and then all of a sudden the body just starts to work the way it wants to. So we don't have to use all the methylation products, the glutathione products, the liver support, that we don't need to do all that because the body knows how to heal itself. For most people, it'll just start to kick in and heal, which is cool, which is great.
Amazing. That hold on. That makes a lot of sense. The way that you explained it, because I see a lot of different videos or shorts about detoxing, and I have seen people talking about.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you now. I just lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah. Yep.
Sorry, is it loud enough?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
hearing
good.
an echo.
Oh no.
Okay, let me see. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, and there's no echo. Great. Okay. So I'm seeing a lot of like reels and things about detoxing and people talking about like charcoal is not enough.
Mhm.
Um, but there's not enough information there for you to find out like, well, then what is it? Like, what do you do? And I love the way that you explain this because it makes complete sense on how you put it, right? Like you take so
Yeah.
much and then you just delete it out of your body.
You just delete it out of your body. That's exactly right. I will say this though, like with things like activated charcoal and other binders, um, they if you take a high enough dose, those do have a potential to start to get you depleted in minerals because they're
Mm,
not what I would call an intelligent binder. They're just a generic binder. So they're just going to bind to whatever. Um, when you use zeolite binds in a couple different ways, but the simplest way to explain it is that it's an intelligent binder, meaning if it grabs if you're got magnesium in your body and it grabs magnesium, and then all of a sudden it comes next to a heavy metal like aluminum, it is going to drop that magnesium and attach to that aluminum because it wants to attach itself to the most toxic things in your body.
Mm.
So there's not as much concern when you use zeolite as a binder. And for those who don't know, zeolite is found in volcanic ash. So it's essentially a mineral,
Mhm.
which is why you can't break it down and digest it. And so when you just add essentially this mineral to your body, it's going to pick and choose the most toxic things to get out of you. And that's why we can very comfortably get you on very, very high doses of it and not see any mineral depletion or what I would call like detox fatigue, where you become mineral deficient in different ways. So it's a very safe type of binder to use.
What, who would use this? I mean, you mentioned about, somebody who had Lyme disease and you were working on that and also the mold,
Yeah.
but who would go and do this? Is it just like, the fats, right? Let's do a detox. Like
Yeah.
who?
I use this. There's nobody that I don't use this on.
Okay.
So I think this is safe and effective for just about anybody to do, even if you believe you're healthy, and
Hmm.
even if you are healthy. And the reason why I would say that is because um, whether you're toxic from so there's endotoxins and exotoxins. An exotoxin means it's external, meaning it's a toxin that you get, right? So you get exposed to plastics and pesticides and heavy metals and different things like that. And those are exotoxins, and zeocharge binds to those very well. It also binds to what are called endotoxins, and those are the toxic things that we make. And the two things that we do on a daily basis that cause the most toxins in our body are digest food and breathe.
So
And
that's
those are the two
everybody.
most, and everybody's doing that, right? And so if you want to go on a binder, all it's going to do is make your detox pathways more efficient. Even if they're not clogged, they don't need to be clogged in order for you to improve by taking a binder like zeolite. Because the analogy I use is there's a toll booth and then there's a traffic jam. And traditional detox protocols with all these supplements are essentially going to the end of that line and pushing that line through.
Mm.
And what zeolite does is it gets to the front of the line and it just starts pulling the cars out. It's like, come on, let's go. Let's hurry this line up. And it's a much more gentle, it's much easier, it's not taxing on your body. And so I still take it. Like, even though most of my infections, if not all of my infections, are gone, I still produce a lot of toxins in my gut because my gut is still healing from how sick I was.
Hmm.
um, I still feel better and I sleep better. My mood is better. My energy is better if I just take a little bit of zeolite every day. Um, it takes that stress off my body so it can just heal a little bit more.
Okay. Um, so if you were healing, you're still healing, and you're
Mhm,
taking it.
mhm.
Let's say somebody is like healthy, working out, and wants to do, let's say, a water fast. Is this something that would be beneficial for them as well?
Just in general life, yeah.
Hmm.
I know I talked to the owner of the company enough. He lives in the Midwest, and in the Midwest, there's just pesticides everywhere. So, what I would say is if you're even a healthy person and you don't have any symptoms, just taking some zeolite will help you. Maybe not today, but it'll help you age better. It'll help your workouts better. It'll help whatever you're doing better because you're just eliminating that low grade inflammation and toxicity that you can't feel
Hmm.
um, just throughout the day. So even a healthy person can do this. And again, you don't metabolize it, so it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to create any negative symptoms. The only negative symptom that you would experience is that if you put your body in a safe enough position to get rid of those older toxins, we'll call them the older scars, the things that happened to you when you were a kid,
Hmm.
if your body wants to try to heal from that, then you won't feel good and you'll need to increase your dose because your body's finally feeling comfortable enough to heal from those childhood wounds or those toxins that you were exposed to, or living on a military base when you were younger, something like that, and
So this
exposed to a
is
bunch of stuff.
now you're talking about emotional toxics, like. How?
Well, I would say not necessarily emotional toxins, but a lot of toxins are lipophilic, meaning they love fat, and
Hmm.
the highest concentration of fat in our body is our brain. And so you definitely see people go through these they emotionally detox as they're detoxing, just because it's called retracing, and it's kind
Hmm.
of like a knot. And when you tie a knot, right, and then when you untie a knot, you kind of go through that again. And so as you heal from wounds and injuries and toxins, you kind of, I don't want to say relive the experience, but you do have this kind of emotional connection to those injuries and to those toxins that you can kind of let go of, we'll say,
Hmm.
and heal better from. Because when you're injured and you're stressed, your body doesn't heal right and it doesn't handle things emotionally well. So I think it kind of gives you that second opportunity as you're retracing and as you're rehealing, you start to get this emotional dump and you start to see things with a little bit more clarity because you're not in the middle of it and you can kind of understand not just these old physical wounds, but the emotional wounds that are tied to our physical wounds.
I'm going to ask you something that's completely out there. I have no idea if this has anything to do with it or related to, if it can help, but you were talking about like the brain has a lot of fat and the toxins
Mhm.
come out of there, and then the resurfacing of the wounds. And this thought came into my mind, which is, could that also help improve your vision?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Okay.
100%. Yeah. 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 That happens all the time.
Okay.
That happens all the, and you'll see people who complain about floaters.
Uh-huh.
People who have like floaters and they just see spots everywhere and stuff like that. And you'll see those things change as they're going through their detox process.
Could it be part of the cause of people, especially young people, like kids who need glasses? Could it be that they have a toxin, and could this help
It
them,
could
you
be.
think?
It could be. Yeah. It definitely could be. Again, the visual cortex is back here, and so there could be a lot of toxins here.
Hmm.
You can just get a lot of toxicity here. Like if you think about even just like toxins like mold that live in our sinuses that are right here that create a lot of inflammation.
Hmm.
Those kind of things are all putting stress on those organs and those parts of our brain. And it 100% could be one of the reasons why. Of course, we have to eliminate the most obvious thing of technology first and
Yeah.
overusing technology. But once we get rid of those obvious things and you're a little bit more complicated, you're like, I'm doing all the right. Usually when people come to me, they're like, I'm doing all the right stuff. I'm eating all the right foods. I'm taking all the right supplements, and it's still not working. And so like I help people find those hidden things. But if yeah, somebody, has done all that and tried all these different things, it 100% could be these hidden infections that are driving inflammation. And that would be the reason why the foundational things don't work. You know?
And when it takes the toxins out, is that different than parasites? Are toxins different than parasites?
Yes, because zeolite does not bind to parasites at
Okay.
all. So you need to do something else to kill parasites. The problem is that when people do these parasite protocols and you start killing, parasites let go of a ton of toxins as you kill them. And
Uh-huh.
so zeolite is definitely one of the binders that we use as we're doing our parasite protocol and as we're killing parasites and eliminating them. We make sure that we have enough binder in us to grab the toxins that are coming out.
And how would somebody know or find out if they have a lot of toxins? I mean, you already spoke about, like, the air and that we breathe, and the food
Yeah,
has it.
if it's affect, how do they know if it's affecting them? I think at the end of the day, um, people know when they're not healing. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's kind of like, I mean, remember all being young and it's like going for a run and just being exhausted and being like, I'll be fine in like an hour, right?
Yeah.
And so we all kind of know we're gonna be okay. And it's when we're not okay after a couple days, then you're like, I still feel X, Y, or Z. I've still got this brain fog. I still got this fatigue. Man, every time I eat, it hurts. My joints hurt and I'm doing all the things to recover, but I'm not recovering. I think when you start to notice those things, there's something going on.
Yeah. Or
And you,
also not healing from a wound, right? Like as a kid, you have
yeah,
a scratch, it's gone the next day or a couple of days. And as we get older or we get more toxins in our bodies that we're holding on to, then you're like, I still have that
yeah,
scab and it's been two
yeah.
weeks.
I liken it to the difference between having one kid and 10 kids.
Uh-huh.
Like Because if the cut is just one kid, your body can go like, I can handle you. But if you got nine other kids over here that you're dealing with, and then this one kid has, and this one other kid's a scratch, you're like, I'll deal with you later. I got these kids to deal with. It just takes us more time, the more toxins we build up. So we build up all of the stress over time, whether it's emotional, physical, or toxic. And that's one of the reasons why I think we heal slower as we get older is
Hmm.
because all of our resources are just going somewhere else. And so if we can identify what they are and take care of, not that a kid's a burden, but like if we can deal with the toxins, not the kids are toxic, but if we can eliminate the toxins, then we won't be juggling so many things and our body can just focus on healing, which is why fasting is so good because when you fast, you don't digest. So much energy goes into that, so much toxicity goes into that that you just find that you heal faster when you heal faster when you fast. So
When you're fasting, when one is fasting, do we release a lot of toxins into our body?
yes, yeah, and for very sick people, we definitely use binders. There's only a handful of things that we'll do while you're fasting, but using a binder is always there on the shelf when you're fasting because we want to make sure that you don't feel bad while you're fasting. And most people will more efficiently detox, and so getting a binder in you is a great way to enjoy your fast and not suffer through it.
Great. And another question, because I've never taken a binder, so this is new to me. But the binder will only take things that your body does not need. It will not take like
Correct.
minerals or things that your body does need.
Zeolite if you're using zeolite as a binder, it will only take the things your body doesn't need.
Amazing. And it works fast, like the same day, like
Well, once you
immediately.
start binding things up, once you take it, within hours, it's gonna start binding things up the second you take it because even in your stomach and in your intestines, there's tons of toxicity that it's just gonna want to bind to. So it's gonna start binding right away. The
Mhm.
question is, at what point will you feel it? Like, when will it bind up enough to lower the stress level? And, some people can notice it within hours, some people can notice it within days. Sometimes it takes people weeks to notice. It really depends on, um, it really depends on so many factors. But if you kind of just think of it as a bell curve, you got to bind enough stuff to get past that bell curve to start you
Mhm.
feeling better.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. And does this interfere with any type of medicine that people may be on, or any type of
So they don't make any promises or anything,
uh-huh,
right?
yeah.
So it's not going to bind with your supplements or your food. However, it binds with toxic things. It turns out that most medication is viewed as toxic to the body. And
Uh-huh.
so if you take it with your medication, you're not going to absorb your medication. So take that for what it is.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So much information and so clear. It's so clear to me what you're showing us. Tell me a little bit more about how you help people, like how people find you.
Yeah. So, can I talk about the other part of the protocol that I
Oh,
discovered, like
yes.
the body? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. That's totally fine. So, so I was using this binder and using it successfully, and I felt like I was getting better, and I was getting better, but there were still some things missing. And back in 2021, a supplement company I was using, um, they had a product called Phages. They had a Phage product. And I don't know if you or anybody else has been listening, has heard of of bacteriophages. And there are people have heard about bacteriophages. And so what I learned at this time essentially was that phages are, in simple terms, they're like viruses, but they're good for us. And so the way you can think of this is that the human body is made up of 30 trillion cells. The human body is made up of 40 trillion bacteria, which is why everybody studies the microbiome. But the human body is also estimated to have 375 trillion viruses in and on it. So we're more virus than we are anything else. And when you say virus, people think, "Oh my gosh, it's Epstein-Barr, it's herpes, it's COVID, it's the flu." But that's only like 20 or so viruses. The rest of the 375 trillion, we don't know what they do or they're good. And a phage is one of those good viruses. Okay? Think of a phage um, as what's called monovalent, meaning it only attacks one thing. And that's what mono means one, and valent means that's what it's attacking. Um, and the best way to think of it is like the small fish that swims around a large shark or a whale. And when we get infected with a bacteria, so I always talk about Lyme. When you get infected with Lyme, it's a bacteria, Borrelia. That bacteria comes into you, but it also brings with it all of the little fish swimming around it, all the phages,
Mm.
right? And so the way phages kill was the most interesting thing to me because it acts like a virus. That phage will infect its host, which is not us, it's the bacteria. It infects the bacteria, eats it from the inside out, kills it, it implodes. But now instead of just one, there's like 20 or 100, and those go out looking for more of that bacteria to eat and kill. Once it kills all of that bacteria and there's no more food for it to eat, they can only live for like 3 or 4 days, and then they just die and go away. And when I found this in 2021, I was like, this is so cool. And so I bought the supplements and I was using them and they were helping everybody. But the really sick people, like I had somebody who had a huge E. coli overgrowth and I used the E. coli phages and they got super sick. And so it was really hard for them to do it. And so I was excited and a little disappointed. And so I started to research and I came across this company that was talking about using phages for Lyme. And at the time, these supplements were just one phage. So it was like, hey, we can help with E. coli, or this product can help with E. coli, and this product can help with salmonella poisoning, and this product can help with other types of bacterial infections. And so when I was searching online, I found this company that was talking about using them for Lyme, but formulating it where, hey, there's like 50 different types of Lyme infections and co-infections, and we're going to try to put them all in one formula. So it's just one thing you got to take, not 50 or 60 different things. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I emailed them and I said, I am all for this. Just let me know when you're ready. Fast forward 4 years later, I finally got an email from them and they said, hey, we finally have something that we're willing to, let other doctors start to use. We've been using this product in our clinic for 2 years. We've treated 200,000 patients with it. And so we want to start to let other people use this. And I was like, I'm all for this. And so I ordered a bunch of their products and I started to use it on me. And they have different formulas essentially that say, hey, if you have Lyme infection, these are all the infections, and these are the infections that we're going to use phages for. Or they have ones for UTI or for SIBO, SIFO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or fungal overgrowth. They have ones for I'm trying to think, mold, parasites. They have like 8 or 9 different ones, dental infections, acne. And so I got a whole bunch of them and I started to use them on me. And as I used them on me, I started to feel better and better and better and better. And I could feel the phages inside of me starting to kill things and starting to just, as I said earlier, it's kind of like when you're sick, you feel sick and tired, but then one day you wake up and you get out of bed and you're like, oh, I feel better today. Like the cold's going away. And that's kind of how I started to feel. And I was like, okay, this is really working. This is killing the bad guys without killing the good guys, which was very important. And I didn't feel sick in the process. I actually just kept feeling better and better and better. And so I started to use that on my family. I started to use it on my patients, and it worked just like it did with me. I started to have these really complex Lyme patients. I had an MS patient who got 90% better in 25 days. Um, Trying to think.
Wow, that's pretty.
Really, really complicated, layered patients with GI issues, with parasites, with West Nile virus, all of these different things. And people just started to respond very positively to using this product and allowing the phages to kill the infection.
Wow. Do you need to take that with the
With the Zeocharge, with the
yeah.
with the binder,
Uh-huh.
I do in my protocol, I do both of them at the same time because as you kill infections, even though there's an implosion,
Mhm.
so when you kill with like antibiotics or herbals, I mean, essentially it's kind of like things exploding and dying. And that creates a lot of debris. It creates an immune reaction. And that's kind of the cytokine storm that people have heard about, where you just get this huge immune reaction. And this is where people don't feel good when they're on antibiotics or they're on herbal killers, or they do a parasite cleanse or they detox. I'm like, I just don't feel good because they're killing a lot of things and it's not coming out of you. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you use phages to kill, it's not a big explosion. You don't get this immune reaction, but there's still debris. And so the binder just makes sure that it's coming out of you and it's not floating around irritating you. And so when we use these two together, I can take the most sensitive people who can't do anything and they tolerate it very well, very well.
Amazing. I had a question about it. Oh, I know. How, because you said the phages are very specific for one thing. So how does one know, or how do you know which one to give the person?
That is a good question. So let me just talk a little bit about the technology and what they do, because I want to make it clear to people that what I'm not doing is I'm not giving people the phages. That's what
Mm,
I'm not doing. You actually already have these phages inside of you.
wow.
If you have an infection, that's the whale or the shark. The phages are already living with it. So all we have to do is flip the switch for those phages, and they'll start attacking that infection and kill it for you. So we don't have to give them to you. We just have to turn them on.
Okay.
And so essentially what the treatment does is it turns them on. And what the formula isn't just one. The formula is like a group of them, like in between 50 and a couple hundred. And so when you take this, it's and just so you know, it's just a little vial of essentially water. You just drink it. And what that does is that activates those specific phages, those 50 to 100, we'll say, and they start attacking for about 12 hours. And then they turn off. And so you drink another one. You drink them every 12 hours and you keep the killing going. But to answer your question more specifically about how do we know, the amount of research that's been done to create these formulas was done over 4 years in a clinic where they measured and they said, what kind of infections do we see? Oh, we see this infection. Well, let's put it in the formula. So over a 4 year time frame, they saw all these infections, created the formulas. It's the formulas weren't created by books. It was by observing what sick people had. And so they were grouped in a way to say these are the infections that we've seen in people with Lyme. And so if you have somebody who has any kind of Lyme at all, this formula will cover it. It'll even cover the ones that we weren't able to see with testing, just
Hmm.
in case they were hiding and we didn't know you had it. It'll take care of those too. Um, and if we give you a formula and you don't have an infection, because we're not giving you the phages, it doesn't do anything, right? It's basically signaling just to those phages. So it doesn't interact with you, just like the binder doesn't interact with you. This treatment doesn't interact with you. It only interacts with the phages. And if you don't have those phages, it's not doing anything. But if you do have those phages, they're going to start killing. So the formulas are designed to get those very specific infections. Um, and some people need help figuring out what kind of infection is it. Is it mold? Is it parasites? Is it Lyme? Is it bacteria? Is it fungal? That kind of thing. And so that's kind of the process and the art of figuring out where to start.
Hmm.
But the treatment covers a wide range within that category. So we don't need to know exactly what you got. We just have to kind of know what category you're in, and we can start moving forward and start helping somebody.
That's amazing. And once somebody starts doing that, how long till they start feeling a difference?
It's
Usually.
different for everybody.
Uh-huh.
I've had people text me within 3 hours telling me they feel different. Somebody with Lyme who had Lyme for almost a decade texted me 3 hours later and said, I've had that cold feeling for like 2, 3 years.
Hmm.
And he's like, it's gone. I don't feel that way anymore, just after 3 hours. He went in stages though, like he felt better 3 hours later, then he felt a shift at 10 days, but he didn't feel it completely go away until day 24, maybe something like that, I think. At day 24, he called and he's like, oh, it's all gone. It's all gone. And so everybody's different. Everybody's different in terms of what they feel.
Hmm.
The cool thing is that the company did research and they did testing studies. And so when they did the study, one of the studies that they have published is they measured not just whether or not people had Lyme, but they actually were able to measure the phages for Lyme. So they were able to draw blood and say, look, you've got Lyme and you've got the phages. And then they treated them for 30 days. And then they drew blood again and they said, do you have Lyme? And do you have the Lyme phages still? And at the end of the 30 days, 91% of the people, it was a 91% eradication rate.
Wow.
So there was like maybe two people who still had, I don't remember the exact numbers, but to get to 91%, you're talking about a very small percentage of people, like 2 out of 50 people still had some traces of the bacteria and some traces of the phages, but the other 48 for percentage wise didn't have anything, and it was completely eradicated based on the studies, based on the testing.
That's amazing. I'm thinking about so many other diseases that have um, no real diagnosis except by eliminating all the other ones. And it always goes back to Lyme, right?
It
First.
always goes back to, you know what it goes back to? It's either going to be Lyme, parasites. Um, I have to say this now because long COVID is a big thing, but it could be a really bad COVID infection. But it's going to be Lyme, parasites, or some sort of long COVID kind of thing going on for people that I've seen in my practice over the past year.
And mold too.
And mold. Yep, those are the three. Those are the four big ones.
Yeah. And I find this to be so helpful and hopeful for so many people because usually when people don't know what's wrong with them and they're going test after test, and it usually takes months to rule
Uh,
out that, oh, it wasn't Lyme, it's actually something else, or yeah, it is Lyme, but it usually takes a really long time and people are
you,
still suffering through it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of money. And believe me, time and money are what I spent over the past 5 years just trying to get healthy too. So I've lived it. Um, and I've lived it in a more frustrating way, being in the field and being like, this is stupid. I'm supposed to be able to figure this out, right? Um,
Yes, I
um,
feel you.
but what I would say with testing is like testing is tough. We
Yeah.
all want to do a test and we all want to get an answer. And I do too. But the reality is that all tests are limited. And when you're doing a pathology test, if you see something in the test, I feel pretty confident that you got it. But if you don't see something in the test, like it doesn't mean you don't have it.
Yeah.
So we can prove a positive, like tests can prove that you have it. It just can't prove that you don't have it. And so there's always been this idea of, well, we saw this in your test and we treated you for it, but you're still sick. So it must be something else, even though we don't know.
Like with
The
thyroid.
nice thing, thyroid, right? The nice thing with this type of treatment is that like you don't interact with it, so there's almost no negative effect profile to any of this in terms of, oh, if you take this, well, you might get this side effect. Um, the only time people don't feel good when they do this type of treatment is if we picked the wrong infection. And what I like to explain to people is that when you look at the microbiome and you look at the bacteria and fungus and all the things living in us and on us, there's only so much real estate for them to be. So what I've seen is that when I use the Lyme protocol on people, and that's all I use, if we go through that protocol and we start killing Lyme and we start making all of the space available for other bacteria to go, if you have another infection, that infection will move a lot faster than the good guys, right?
Hmm.
And you will start to get some other type of symptom. I'm bloating, I've got constipation, I can't sleep well, I'm moody, I've got something else will pop up and you'll feel good. And then you'll be like, ugh, what's going on with me? I thought this was going to make me feel good. And that's because there was another infection that we just didn't see and we have to figure out. And I wish there was just a test for that. I really wish there was just a way to know at the beginning, and then we can do this, and it would eliminate a lot of the art of healthcare
Hmm.
because there's a science and an art. And the art is dealing with an individual who has their own story and their own experience and their own lived life. And I only know so much. And so we kind of have to walk that journey together until we get to the point where they tell me, okay, we figured it out. I feel pretty good.
I have two questions. Number one,
Mhm.
Why do the phages need to be activated? Why doesn't the body just know to do that without extra
Good
help?
question. I don't know the complete answer, but I'll tell you what I know about phages in nature.
Hmm.
And that is that phages are everywhere in nature. And so when you look out, like I'm looking out my window right now to a field and a forest, and there's a pond over there, and the ocean's over there, like we don't see these big bacterial fungal overgrowths because in nature it's in balance. And one of the balancing mechanisms in nature is phages. And so when there is this overgrowth of either a fungus or bacteria or something like that, when it hits 40% saturation, that's when you start to see the phages kick in. That's when you start to see the phages flip a switch and start to attack their host and dwindle the population down.
Hmm.
I think we're just not hitting that threshold in our body. And for most people, the reason why we're getting sick isn't because we have this big overload of Lyme. It's because we have Lyme and we have other things. And so we're never hitting the threshold for the phages to want to flip their switch, but we have the tool inside of us. And so we just have to flip it for ourselves and get rid of it. And I think that, I mean, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that, but I think based on what I know right now, that would be the best explanation. And the good news is that we have the technology to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So we can identify it and do it.
Do you know if you're taking whatever it is that you're doing to activate the phages
Mhm.
and you're using this, does it get saturated or does it learn not to be as sensitive like our bodies does with antibiotics in the long run? Do you know about
Yeah.
that?
So essentially, it's a signal. So in really simple terms, um, that little vial of water has signals embedded into it in the same way that homeopathy might. The difference between, we'll say homeopathy and this is that those signals in homeopathy interact with you.
Hmm.
Whereas with it's called inducin, and so the inducin therapy, that signal interacts with the phages and it turns them on. And so there is no um, when you take a drug, there's a receptor on your cells that gets activated from the drug. And over time, that receptor becomes less sensitive to it. And so you need to take more drugs to feel the same way, which is where addiction comes from. And so nothing like that happens that I'm aware of with the inducin, where that signal becomes where the phages become less sensitive. I
Hmm.
don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I don't even know if anybody knows. That's a good question. But what I will say is that over time, the reason why phage therapy is so good and why the inducin is so good, especially with Lyme, is because when you do a Lyme treatment, you have to deal with the fact that Lyme infections have hijacked your immune system and they hide and they protect themselves. And there's biofilms, which are like hard candy shells that the antibiotics and the killers can't penetrate, and then they go and hide. So the nice thing with using phage therapy is that they're already living with the bacteria, so they can't hide, and they ignore biofilms, and they just go in there and they just go in and attack it. And sometimes what can happen is the longer you go with phage therapy is that the defense they do have some defenses, and those defenses can mutate a little bit and change so the phage can't find them. The nice thing is that because we're using a signal and because we can load up all these different signals and influence all these different types of phages within it, um, that mutation is built in. And so as the bacteria defends itself, the formula anticipates it and attacks the change that that bacteria is going through.
Beautiful. Um, the other thing I was going to ask you is you mentioned earlier that you had like an iodine deficiency, and then
Mhm.
um, after a while, like you didn't get to like, well, why did I have the iodine deficiency to
That took a
begin with?
while.
Yeah,
Yes.
is this because of some type of virus inside the body who's that's like eating that or preventing it from being absorbed?
I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm.
What I think in just general terms is that when you have all these hidden infections, your body's just using up a lot of resources.
Mm.
And so that's one thing, is just you're using them up a lot. The other potential is that that inflammation is affecting your microbiome in your gut. and you're just not absorbing it from your food. So I
Hmm.
think those are the two most obvious things that are going on why you would feel deficient.
Hmm.
Um, and for the longest time before I used the inducin therapy for the phages, or I used the zeolite at the high dose, I would always start by restoring people's deficiencies because that was the quickest way to get them feel better. And then I would start focusing on why they're deficient. The nice thing with um, the this protocol with the inducin and the zeolite is that when you reduce the inflammation drastically, your body is able to get to those resources and those deficiencies much quicker because one, most of the things we're deficient in, your body makes. Like people don't realize your body makes B vitamins, your body makes vitamin K, it makes vitamin D, it makes all of these things, and it just can't, or those resources are being used for something else. Um, and then obviously for iodine, you need to take iodine or you need to get it in your diet somewhere. Um, And so once you reduce the inflammation, you're just going to start to get things out of your diet. So I don't find that I need to micromanage people that much.
Hmm.
Most of what we do is just pull the splinter out and watch the body heal. And then if they're still symptomatic and we want them to feel better faster, we use these other supplement protocols to restore certain deficiencies if they're not healing as fast as they want to, or things like that.
I love that. I love the whole give it to the body to heal itself once it has
Mhm.
the right environment inside.
Yeah, once you pull, it's funny, once you get rid of these infections and pull the splinters out, then it just comes down to all the stuff we all know, right? Like
Yeah.
exercise, manage your stress, have good relationships, eat well. Like you just start doing those things and all of a sudden you start getting healthy. It's just the stuff we all already knew, but you were doing those things and they weren't working.
Hmm.
And that's where the physical trauma, the emotional trauma, or the toxin come into play, which is a hidden infection in what we're talking about. Like you have to deal with those things. So if you're living a good life, but you're not as healthy as you want, it's going to be one of those three things. And you just have to kind of think about when did this start? What happened in my life? Was it a physical, emotional, or toxic trauma? And then you just start with one of those things and you start going down that path of discovery and figuring out which of those, and it might be multiple, right? You might need to be adjusted. You might need to go to a therapist or talk to somebody, and you might have to deal with that hidden infection that you got from food poisoning a while ago or something like that.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, one last thing I have for you. And are you familiar with muscle testing as a
I'm familiar with
chiropractor?
muscle testing, yes.
Okay, because before when you were talking about um the only way a person doesn't get uh, better fast is if we didn't find the exact one,
Mhm.
or if there was something else and there's no test. I was thinking, how about muscle testing? Maybe we can, maybe you can use muscle testing to find out which one it is.
You 100% can.
Uh-huh.
Here's the limiting factor with muscle testing. And the first thing I will say is this. I treat a lot of people virtually. I'm on the East Coast. Half of my clients are on the West Coast. I can't
Uh-huh.
muscle test them, right? The other thing is you have to have, when you muscle test, you have to hold something, right? And see how you react to it, and you're going to muscle test it. You have to buy all of the different versions of all the different infections. So you're talking like I think like 300 to 400 different vials, or 300 to 400 different infections, we'll say total. Whether you do them individually in a vial, that probably wouldn't even matter. But um, I talked to the owner of the company about this. I said that would be great for me to have,
Mm-hmm.
and he just said it was a lot of work. He's done that in his clinic. It's a matter of how do you get that to people who are working virtually with people, and how
Yeah,
do you get
yeah.
them, because you got to send that to people. So he's done that in his, like he was able to do that in his clinic where he could identify and he could create these personalized formulas. But for when you're working virtually, it's a little hard. It's a little expensive to do. Now you're talking about getting it out of the price range of 95% of people. Um, and so I think his solution was we're just going to group all of these together and have 8 different formulas for everything we've ever seen and go from there. And that's a good starting point for us. But I agree with you.
Nice.
You could muscle test, and he's done stuff like that in his
Uh-huh.
clinic. It's just not something that's viable for me virtually.
Yeah, of course. Well, amazing. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you would like to share?
No, no, I love sharing my journey. I love sharing what I'm doing. It's unique. It's something most people have never heard of.
No.
The results that I'm getting are great. I've
I'm
been in
very
practice.
interested. I'm like, wow, I've never heard about this. And this sounds, it doesn't sound overwhelming for like someone who's listening to this and is like, maybe I want to, like all of this stuff didn't work for me. I want to try something else. Maybe this is my thing. If you're resonating with this or you're listening to this and it resonates, like it doesn't sound overwhelming. Like I have to buy 100 different types of vitamins or supplements to get there. It just feels a lot more doable.
It is a lot more doable, and it was something I was looking for years because again, I did this. I was trained like that, and I mean, I was like, what am I doing? It's like I'm asking people to buy all these supplements and cycle on and off, and they're doing really hard things and they're spending all this time and they're tired and they're exhausted and they have brain fog and they can't figure it out. And you know, it felt like a lot to me, and I just always thought I was like, truth is relatively simple. It might not be easy, but it's simple, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, just the chiropractic philosophy of finding the toxin and eliminating it. I'm like, there has to be something like this. And so I was always looking for something that was simpler to do. And I always thought if I could find it, it would be more effective. And that's where I've landed. I've landed on something that's pretty simple that's to sound. It sounds pretty simple. You just do these two products essentially, and you get amazing, amazing results. And both of those products have a lot of science and time and effort and money into creating them. But the end product for the patient is that I can create a really simple protocol that's doable, that will finally move the dial for you, most likely, as long as we have time and you have patience to go through that process. It's a really fun process to go through because you start to see the results that you've been looking for and just haven't gotten. And that's been my experience.
Yeah, it's always very exciting when you get results and you start seeing a difference, especially if you've been looking for something and not seeing the results for a long time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell us, where can people go and find you?
So right now, the easiest way to find me is going to my website, which is drmolda.com. And then if the other website that we have right now is called LymeMadeSimple.com. And that's really geared towards people who are curious about, do I have Lyme? Is that what's kind of driving my symptoms because I've looked everywhere else and don't know? And what we do on that page is we just have a little freebie, which is there's a Lyme questionnaire essentially. It's 38 questions and it'll tell you how likely it is that you're struggling with Lyme. And you can just go on there and download that, and we'll reach out to you after you do it and just see if you want to talk about it. But on my website and on that website, we do offer a free 15-minute phone call, which is not a consultation. So nobody should expect to tell me their life story in 15 minutes and have me
Uh-huh.
give them answers. But it is designed for us to just talk and you kind of just tell me what your story is, what you've been struggling with, and then for you to ask me questions about my protocol, and just see if it's a good fit. And if it's a good fit, then we can schedule a longer consult where we'll go over your health history and I'll get what I like to tell people is I need to get caught up on your story because I don't know anything about you. And so
Mhm.
it just gives us that time for me to get caught up and make really good suggestions and start to create a roadmap for you to address whatever hidden infections there might be. And then how do you rebuild your body after we eliminate the infections and the inflammation? How do we rebuild your body faster?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to put all of your information on the notes. So if somebody didn't catch it, you can just go and check there. It's been quite enlightening. Very, very uh, informational session here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I really enjoy talking to you.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'll say goodbye. So we'll talk to you next time. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I am, for one, really, really excited about all the information that we just received. I think I'm actually going to try it myself because, it just feels doable and it's resonating with me. So I don't know if it's resonating with you, just reach out. You have nothing to lose, especially if you are down the Lyme disease um, road or journey and you haven't gotten any relief, just give it a try and see what happens, because that's what this is all about. It's just finding out what it is that will work for you. If you found this interesting or helpful, please like, subscribe, send me a message, send Dr. Molda a message, and let us know that this has helped you. And please share with as many people as you feel this would help, because that is the only way that this podcast and this episode will be seen by more people that it can help. So, with that, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I will talk to you next time. Bye bye.